Hey, Balaam, where's your donkey? Why does Christianity still dominate the Democratic Party? And the second part to this is the Democratic Party is not antithetical to religion. So these two articles are basically kind of addressing the issue of the nons and also the intersectionality of Democrats that are still religious and don't feel that they're being represented by the Democratic Party. So I thought this article was actually really, really interesting because it's not something I really think about as a secular leftist. I just don't really think about, like, are Democrats concerned that, that they're not being connected with, on that level, especially with politicians. And it's still a part of their rhetoric. And that's what the article kind of goes into, that religion is still very much a part of the democratic message, but with not so much with white Americans, it's mostly with African Americans and Latinos, because they have a higher proportion of religious people in their population, where a lot of the secular movement is being seen as a white thing, and which kind of makes sense if you kind of think about it, because those are the most voices that you see. More people, when they express that they're secular, they say that they're white and stuff like that. So, and I think that also because the Democrats are always trying to appeal to, and to people of color and their voters, they're going to use that message over and over again. But the flip side of that is that also there's a little bit of distance, I think, on the Democratic Party, because when you think of evangelical, Christian, believers, where does your mind go? It goes to the Trumpist side, the people that were, very extreme religious right, because that's where the Republican was, that's where Trump was getting his base. That's where the message was going. So I think there's a lot of religious people on the left that are trying to distance themselves. They don't want to be associated with that, but they still want to know that the people that they're voting for have Christian values and have, those things that they think make a good, politician. That's where they get their morals from and that type of stuff. So, it is one of those things where it's where the left is seen secular, because usually where there is even in the Democratic candidates, they definitely have a message that they'll say, like, I'm this religion, but I understand that it's separate from my job as a politician and the type of laws and things I want to uphold, that they have to be separated to affect everybody, where the right has a different message. So I thought that this was kind of interesting, because again, like, it wasn't something that I was really thinking about. So, Teo, what do I would definitely want to hear your kind of opinion on this.
Ooh, asking the foreign guy about USA politics, it's quite funny. And
I kind of feel
thank
bad
you
a
for,
little bit. I kind of feel bad that we, like, a lot of this stuff is just like, heavily leaning on how fucked up American politics are.
Right?
And like Teo has to, like, yes, let me go ahead and give my take on it. Just like it's interesting, to say the least. But I'm so sorry to step on your toes. I just had to get that out because it was on my mind. Go ahead, Teo.
you feel bad. I feel great. I can talk shit about how is it, Cynthia? Shit, right? About the
Right,
USA.
shit.
You
Oh,
are
we had to do the echo
asking me
thing.
about it.
Shit. You remember we had to do shit and then the echo? Remember?
Oh yeah, shit.
Shit, 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 shit. Okay, gotcha.
Not my
Gotcha.
echo.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys. When Helen said, "Oh yeah, Democrats are the left," I could only go like, "Left." Guys, you don't know what left is. What you call left is what we call the right, and what you call right is what we call extremists. So the USA has no left. Whenever I see people saying Obama is a communist, guys, please look at your fucked up system. Oh, my facts are earned, and today I have a lot of those, because you have right and extreme right. Those are the two political sides from the USA, at least from this foreign who sees your system, your awful system, from far away. And it's terrible because once again, I already mentioned, oh yeah, I seem to be obsessed with harms of religion. But guys, we have been talking about religion, and now we're talking about how these supposedly left politicals are trying to say, hey, look at us, we are religious people. And the reason why we help poor people is not because we are filthy communists. It's because Matthew 25:31-46, Jesus is saying that we should help people, not because we're communists. And there are a lot of strong words that I want to say, so I'm just going to say it's worrying from this point of view. Extremely, extremely worrying, guys.
I mean, yeah,
I'm not going to say you're wrong.
No, that's what I'm saying. About like where we are specifically, like with our bipartisan our bicameral and bipartisan setup when it comes to party is not. I actually kind of share them. I mean, that's why. Yeah, I kind of share them. I mean, because like even if you look at like who is in office, the even if they are considered like this, if we just take Congress people, for example, and when they first come in and they may have like more of a left leaning, by the time that they had time in Congress, they become way more center, you know, and the reason being is because they go along with the party platform. And even if like, I remember when during when I was looking at the 2020 DNC platform specifically, it was, even though they had like a lot of different policies, I was like, okay, that's different. That's okay. I guess that's okay. But it wasn't really left. It was just kind of like shit government is supposed to do anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like help poor people, give back Native American lands. You know, let's actually look at the harms of slavery and how it has affected entire group of people. You know, like, you know, this like regular shit that government is supposed to do anyway. You know, it was never. And then like people look at those policies and go, oh my goodness, this is so progressive. I'm like, no, it's not. This is shit you're supposed to do. But
how do they dare use common sense?
Yeah, you know, but here's the thing. But even if you look at even the makeup of Congress alone, I think there's like only one out atheist. If like according, like when I did my research, I believe that like it's like less than 2%. It's something to that effect.
Oh yeah, because it's political suicide if you're out as an atheist. You're not going to get elected. No, because if you say that you're a secularist, you don't have to say the word atheist. Everybody's like, what's that? They don't believe in God. You know, what are their beliefs? And then like, oh, obviously if you don't believe in God, you're not a moral person. Duh. so they can't have any positions of power.
Right. This is so true. I mean, it's just so crazy how like how overly represented Christianity specifically is in the United States, and how that sensibility has bled into every portion of how we even conduct our lives. Is in our education, as we talked about in our previous segment. It's in government, as we're talking about right now. And it even like very much so, depending on how you interpret said belief, will very much so judge your actions, i.e. January 6th. You know, I mean, it's kind of even crazy that there is a whole term to actually talk about, you know, extremists who happen to be Christian and conservative leaning in their politics, and call them Christian nationalists. You know, the patriotic people, America first, you know, give me liberty or give me death, not for real, but not for you, but for me, because if you don't believe in my theocracy, is a fuck say for you, you know. And the thing about it is that even the Democrats can't even completely disavow the Christianity portion, because as you said, it's political suicide, you know. And even like I even talked about this in my notes on how, you know, Black Americans are the largest identifying Christian group in the United States. We're at 79%, between 79 to 80%, according to Pew. Latinos, or I'm sorry, Latine is at 77%. And I believe that whites are at like less than 70%. Like I think they're like around 68, 69% according to Pew. So you still have, and so like when you have like all that together, like you still have like a roughly around 65 to 67% of the United States that's still Christian identifying, whether they, you know, feel that, hey, we should like actually teach real history and not like make shit up and just to make ourselves feel good. You still, but you still have that part of it, even though like as much as we talk about separate church and state, separate religion and government, religion should have nothing to do with how we are governing our constituency, because our constituency is a plethora of belief and non-belief, you know. And we, even though like I believe that nons, as we talked about, like in this article, talked about that there were at like around 29%. And you do have people who are very much so active, who are non-religious, who want their voices heard and what matters to them. And the more, but it seems like every time that we have candidates coming up to the podium when they're running, everybody got to talk about their faith. Everybody got to talk about their God. I mean, if anyone actually watched like the confirmation hearings with Judge Brown Jackson, that was part of her opening speech, was about her faith and how it carried her through and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then Lindsey Graham grilled her on it, you know, which is absolutely insane. And even though that she's not even going to an elected office, but you know, that's part and parcel of the speech that you have to make in order for you to be accepted. It's kind of crazy.
And when you think about it too, like, because there's plenty of religious people that do believe in the separation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they understand that faith is a private matter, you know, and then, you know, government should not be catering to religious or non-religious is what is good for people as a the country as a whole, the people as a whole, you know. And I think that those people are kind of getting also drowned out, you know.
Yeah.
Religious people that do believe in the separation of church and state, that do want to see that, you know, a secular government, you know, they might want a politician to be religious just because to them that means that they have good morals. But as far as policy and making decisions and stuff like that, they don't want religion to come into those decisions because it's not going to be beneficial for everyone as a whole. And you know, I think that those people aren't getting, you know, aren't getting heard. Their opinion isn't as of value, because it's like, while no, you want them to make decisions based on their religious faith, you know, because that's the idea that comes through and stuff like that. And it's just depressing and sad when you really think about it, because it should really come down to what policy is best as a whole for the whole people, you know. And I think it's a tricky line for Democrats, you know, politicians to have. That's a line that they have to kind of play with. You know, I have to appeal to the secular people, and I also have to appeal to, you know, the religious people that are, you know, are in my party. And I think for Democratic politicians, especially ones that lean more secular, trying to find that line can be difficult.
Yeah, it's very nebulous because like even though like you do have like people who have a tendency to say, and I know them, they're around me all the time. They happen to be theist Christians who really want that hard line between religion and government. But the but on the flip side of that is that somehow, some way, that ideology can still very much so creep into how you govern and what policies that you would actually say is appropriate and what is not appropriate. And we're even with the ones who happen to be a bit more right of center, and the ones who happen to, you know, say that, yes, I happen to be a Christian, however, that is not what's going to that's not going to rule me when I'm making decisions based on like policy and legislation. It still can kind of like play a part. I think that what is mostly important is that we who happen to be on the side of more like secular humanism, and even those who happen to be believers, but do really believe in the separation of church and state, it has to be to the point where those are the people whose voices are being raised more and more to say that, hey, this is a group that we need to pay attention to, so that we have less influence of of religious and ministries and things of that nature that's actually like influencing policy. I mean, like I I just think about not long ago, like over a year ago, where there was a whole theological roundtable that was sitting that had, access to the White House in our president's ear, speaking to the president about how Jesus wants you to run the country. And that to me was unfucking acceptable, because we have seen that when you do that, everyone has their own interpretation of what Jesus is saying, and especially on how that affects us as a constituency. And I'm going to stop it right there. I want Ateo and Helen, go ahead and get your final thoughts until we go into our last segment, please.
Thank you, Cynthia. Really quickly, personally, I support neither political side. That's why I get insulted by both. It's awesome. But talking about your side, where you have right and not right extremists, I'm still worried, because the only difference, I'm going to quote, Christian Republicans emphasize prayer, doctrine, the end times, personal sin, and salvation. Christian Democrats tend to promote the social gospel, namely Jesus' mandate to care for others, especially the poor and oppressed. It's sad that the only way how they can do what the job of the government is actually is, which is helping its people, it's only if they go like, Jesus wants us to help people. Even if they are actually helping people like that, it's still scary, because we have been talking, all the previous articles that we have mentioned are related to how dangerous religious indoctrination is. So I will repeat it, guys, and I finish with this. I'm really worried about you, and I hope things get better for you, for real.
Me too.
I know, I'm worried about us too. Well, I'm always like, okay, what can we do? So my 2 cents on this is that those of us who are secular, we have to kind of bridge that gap with those on the left that are religious and want that hard line, and also to encourage our religious secular brothers and sisters to kind of get behind, secular and atheist political figures, activists, and stuff like that, and amp up their voices. You don't have to agree on ideology but if you think a person's like, oh, he or she or they would be really good at this job, speak up, promote them. And we have to kind of bridge that gap together, because us alone isn't going to do it. So we have to find our allies. And that's what we have to do if we really want to see this to change. So that would be something that I would want to see happen. I'm not saying that it will, but it was just something I would like to see happen.
Indeed. One can wish, can't they?
Yeah.
One can hope, can't they?